Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up, bye-bye travel ban. Thousands of non-essential foreign travelers pour into the United States after 20 months of not being able to visit. Then the lawsuits pile up against Travis Scott and Drake after a stampede at the Astroworld Festival in Texas left 8 dead and dozens hurt. And a mountain of discarded clothing sits in the Atacama Desert in Chile. Coming up, a closer look at the fast fashion waste and the companies taking it on. I'm Jeannie Godula. Our picture of the week is this one. Families finally reunited at the Los Angeles airport. They're some of the thousands who finally got a much-needed hug after a 20-month travel ban. The majority of foreign travelers were barred from entering the U.S. in March 2020 as the Trump administration tried to keep COVID under control. But the borders are now once again open to visitors from 33 nations if they're vaccinated or can show a recent negative test. Solange Moujon takes us through the new rules and requirements to travel there.
The volley of jets has begun again. As the United States opens its borders to vaccinated foreign tourists, a surge of travelers are expected. For it's been 20 months since Donald Trump shut the U.S.'s borders because of the coronavirus pandemic. For hundreds of thousands, it's been a long wait. Like for these British parents. They already have their bags packed and are excited to hug their son in the U.S.
We'll meet at the airport, and that'll be tears all around, I think, in a way. So it's going to be quite emotional.
To be allowed entry, travelers must have proof of being fully vaccinated with a vaccine that's been approved or authorized by U.S. regulators or the World Health Organization. Visitors must also show proof of a negative viral test taken within 3 days of travel. They have to provide contact tracing information, but they don't have to self-quarantine. For unvaccinated foreigners, there are a few exemptions, including children traveling with a vaccinated family member. They only need a negative COVID test. Medical, humanitarian, and emergency exemptions are also possible, but may require pre-approval. At airports and at land borders, long immigration lines are expected. They could last hours. But for many along the U.S.-Mexico border, the lifting of the ban is a relief.
We know that it's important for the economies of our two countries and our communities. It is not just for the economy, it's also for the families. There are a number of them that are here and there. We have parents on both sides of the border.
Since this summer, American tourists have been allowed to visit Europe, but the other way around wasn't allowed, which created diplomatic tensions. Now it is a two-way street again.
More than a dozen lawsuits have been filed and a criminal investigation has been opened after the disaster at the Astroworld Festival last week. 8 people died and hundreds were hurt at that concert stampede in Houston. The youngest of those killed was just 14 years old. The lawsuits say Scott and surprise guest Drake incited the crowd and that concert producer Live Nation failed to provide adequate security. Our Delano D'Souza reports.
These were the scenes at the Astroworld Festival in Houston, Texas last Friday. In the middle of all this, tragedy was slowly unfolding. A cardiac arrest as well as concert goers who fell unconscious. In total, 8 people died and dozens more were injured. An ambulance even tried to make its way into the crowd, but the show went on.
I feel devastated for the loss of my son. But as the lawyer said, we hope that his life will change things and how these events are organized.
In the aftermath of Friday's tragedy, lawsuits have started to pile up for the event's organizers and performers, including Travis Scott and Drake.
What occurred out there last Friday was predictable, foreseeable, and unfortunately preventable because it wasn't prevented. So you start with the top, the producers, the promoters, and you work all the way down to the bottom, which includes the people who were performing, the security.
From the very moment the festival's gates opened, things started to unravel. Crowds jostled to get in and some even fell. Security seemed to lose control of the event right from the start.
We know that the VIP entrance and other barriers were being torn down hours before any of the injuries happened. So that's a red flag right there that whatever plans have been put in place are either inadequate or they're not being enforced.
50,000 people gathered for the Astroworld Festival in Houston. Travis Scott and surprise performer Canadian rapper Drake have been accused of inciting the crowd. Both men have issued statements in the aftermath of the show. Scott says he is absolutely devastated and is working alongside local law enforcement, adding he will support families of the victims. Drake took to Instagram to express his grief and says his heart is broken. While the investigation into what went wrong at the festival is underway, legal experts expect lawsuits seeking damages could climb into hundreds of millions of dollars, given the relatively young age of the victims and the injured.
U.S. President Joe Biden has made tackling climate change a central part of his plan to help boost the U.S. economy. His infrastructure plan that's already passed includes tens of billions of climate measures. But Biden's even bigger Build Back Better bill, which earmarks hundreds of billions for climate action, is delayed. And its passage, as currently written, is in doubt. Nick Rushworth takes a closer look now at some of America's renewable energy solutions already in place.
This is the Buckthorn Solar Power Farm in Texas, and like a lot of things in the state, it is on the giant side. Its 1.7 million solar panels produce electricity for 37,000 homes. The US President Joe Biden wants solar power to provide 40% of the country's electricity by 2035. That's a huge increase on current national output, but for the solar farm's director, it is possible.
We think it's entirely attainable. It will be difficult, but it's not a particularly stretch goal. You know, some of the newer panels will actually be as big as these four. Yeah, actually. Right? And so consequently, instead of 1.7 or let's say 1.6 million, you might be able to divide that by 4.
Even if solar technology advances as hoped, the US will need to build at least 50 solar farms a year to meet the government's goals. States such as Texas, Arizona, and California have desert areas with space for such farms, but it's not so easy for states on the East Coast with high urban density. One solution in New Jersey is to put solar panels on water.
This is, I believe, the biggest solar floating array in the United States. There's no special waterproofing of the panels, or connectors are the same. So the only real difference is it floats. And as far as anything underneath, that's the only thing that holds it in place.
The major weakness of renewable energy sources is that it's hard to store the energy generated. Gas, coal, and nuclear sources are used when there's a lack of sun and wind. One solution in place for that in California is battery energy storage.
So inside here, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of small cell phone batteries in here. Each one of the battery cells, which is this, has so many batteries in it, it weighs about 150 pounds. So each one of these is very, very heavy, lots of energy.
The plant recently opened. Its director general says it is a major advance.
It stores during the day, and then when the peak happens at night, once the sun goes down very quickly, it plays its part in providing very quick, efficient response to the need for additional generation at that peak.
Renewables and battery power are solutions for the future, but the challenge remains huge for the United States to wean itself off fossil fuels and go green.
Next, now to Chile, where a mountain of discarded clothing is piling up in the Atacama Desert. Chile imports a huge amount of the world's unwanted clothes and has a fast fashion waste problem that a couple of companies are now taking on.
The social impact of the clothing industry, such as the use of child labor or low wages, is well known, but not so much the effect on the environment. Chile has long been a hub of second-hand and unsold clothing, much of it made in Asia. Tens of thousands of tons of it arrive each year at the port of Iquique in northern Chile. Venezuelan migrants Sofia and Jenny are here looking for things to wear in the cold because the Atacama Desert's nighttime temperatures drop dramatically.
We came to look for clothes because we really don't have any, because we threw them all away when we came here backpacking.
Clothing merchants in the Chilean capital Santiago buy some, and some is smuggled to other Latin American countries. A small amount is recycled. One company, Ecofibra, is using it to make insulation.
The waste is what used to go to the dump in the desert, and now we are turning it into a raw material to make our thermal insulation panels.
A UN report in 2019 looked at the environmental impact of the fashion industry and noted that global production had doubled between the years 2000 and 2014. The industry is responsible for 20% of global water waste, and incredibly, it takes 7,500 litres of water just to make one pair of jeans. Another company, EcoCtex, in Chile, is also tackling the fast fashion waste problem. It creates yarn from discarded textiles and clothing. The process uses neither water nor chemicals.
Many people criticize us and say, why are you charging for recycling? And it's because we have to educate people that textile waste has a cost.
Recycling is clearly a better option than dumping, because textiles that are chucked out can take a couple of 100 years to biodegrade.
Well, with so much sad news in the world these days, it's always nice to see something that makes you smile. And I'm pretty sure this is going to do the trick. Meet new internet sensation, Lane. The wiggle dancing 1-year-old is the star of her mom's TikTok account that sent little Lane into viral fame. The original video of Lane and her mom in the pool was first posted over the summer and now has nearly 12 million views. You can check out that one and more on the mom's TikTok account, The Real Nikki Renee. Well, that wraps it up for this Inside the Americas. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon with all the news from north to south.